Said, I will break the nature of the threats identified to me by CSIS into 4 distinct categories of threats. Each of these threats were intended to discredit me, promote false narratives about my policies, and to severely obstruct my work as a Member of Parliament and as leader of the official opposition. The numerous examples also demonstrate that there was an orchestrated campaign of foreign interference in the 43rd Parliament and into the 2021 general election. The first category of threat is related to foreign funding, specifically the payment of funds by the Chinese Communist Party through the United Front Work Department to create specific products of misinformation on me as a Member of Parliament and as leader of the Conservative Party of Canada. The second category of threat is related to human resources, specifically the use of groups of people working for or aligned with the United Front Work Department in Canada. They were organized and directed by a foreign state to amplify misinformation efforts and undermine my work as a member of this chamber and as leader of a parliamentary caucus. The third category of threat is related to foreign-controlled social media platforms. This category related specifically to the WeChat communications platform and its use to further the aims of the Chinese Communist Party and the United Front Work Department, and their campaign to spread misinformation to undermine and discredit my work in this chamber as the Member of Parliament for Durham and as leader of the official opposition. The final category of threat outlined to me, Madam Speaker, is related to voter suppression. Specifically, intelligence indicated an active campaign of voter suppression against me, the Conservative Party of Canada, and a candidate in one electoral district during the 2021 general election. I must acknowledge at this point, Madam Speaker, that I also believe my privileges as a member and officer of Parliament were infringed by the government's unwillingness or inability to act on intelligence related to foreign interference. The briefing from CSIS confirmed to me what I had suspected for quite some time, that my parliamentary caucus and myself were the target of a sophisticated misinformation and voter suppression campaign orchestrated by the People's Republic of China before and during the 2021 general election.
I also believe that my privileges as a Member of Parliament and Leader of the Opposition have been breached by the government's reluctance to act upon the measure of intelligence relating to foreign interference. The CSIS briefing confirmed to me what I'd long suspected, that my party, several of my members of Parliament and myself were the target of a Chinese orchestrated campaign of disinformation and voter suppression in the run-up to and during the 2021 general election.
Not only were the multiple threats against me and members of my parliamentary caucus not raised to me by the government or security agencies during the 43rd Parliament, but these serious threats were also not communicated to us through the Security and Intelligent Threats to Elections Task Force created by the government in the 43rd Parliament to safeguard our election. The context of the final months of proceedings in this chamber in the 43rd Parliament is also important to consider with respect to my privilege, Madam Speaker. The House at the time was seized with 4 separate document production orders forcing the government to be accountable to this House about what actually happened at the Winnipeg laboratory and the firing of scientists with links to China. I know that you remember at the time, Madam Speaker, because the government forced you into federal court over the issue and forced me, as a member of this chamber and leader of the opposition, to seek intervener status in that proceeding, which ultimately dissolution rendered moot. While denying our privileges as members for disclosure of these documents at the time, the government also denied me and other members of this chamber, including a member in the NDP, knowledge of identified foreign interference threats against us as parliamentarians. This is a matter that that should concern all members of this House, regardless of party. As I mentioned in my opening remarks, this is a separate and distinct matter from that which my colleague, the Honourable Member for Wellington-Halton Hills, raised to you a few weeks ago. The threats identified against me by CSIS did not relate to one single event or one single accredited diplomat. Rather, the numerous threats identified to me provide proof of an ongoing campaign of foreign interference intended to disrupt my work as a member, but also to critically disrupt my work as leader of a large parliamentary caucus in a minority parliament. Threats, disruption, and interference of this scale actually violated the privilege of hundreds of members of this House.